this is me, with a knight helmet, with a double base, with bow in my hand like a sword. I was supposed to be in music class, but my brain had other plans. I don't think I was unusual. I think most of you have a photo like this, or a memory like this. A stick that was a sword, a ruler that was a blade, maybe a toy that was supposed to be entirely something else. And the question nobody actually asks is why? Why knights? Why samurai? Why Vikings? And why all of this starts so early? And why does it never truly leave our brain? I'm Michael Kozin, and I've been training longsword in historical European martial arts for over 2.5 years already, through competing in tournaments and of course sparring. And every time a new member joins my free community, link in the description, I ask them this question, which is, what's their main motivation for actually getting better at sword fighting? Almost nobody says for self-defense. Almost nobody says for just a sport. What they say every single time is that they loved knights, swords, medieval history all their lives. And they finally decided to take a real step into learning something for real, which is of course sword fighting in historical European martial arts. And that's what this video is about. Come and find me in the link in the description, which is my free community, Start Sword Fighting. And if you join it right now, I will personally reach out to you to help you with your sword fighting technique. So number one, it starts before you could explain it. So let's establish this universality that every man, including you and me, have this type of memory. Before you knew what a knight was, you were swinging a stick that you picked up on a walk on your street. Before you could name a samurai, you were always drawn to the image of one. I think this isn't learned behavior, because nobody teaches a young boy to do this. And it always appears too early, too consistently throughout the entire world, and across too many warrior cultures to be just a coincidence. Every civilization that has ever existed had their own warrior cultures, their own warrior class. And every boy born to that civilization had been drawn to that image. I think this isn't nostalgia. And I don't think it's just a phase, as many of you would call it. This is something way, way older than any of us. And that's why the warrior archetype doesn't appear in the boy's psyche because of video games and movies. The video games and movies exist because that thought was already in there. The archetype was already there deep inside our brain. Number two, Malbork. So where it got real for me. So for most of my life, I grew up in Poland. And in Poland, it's not hard to imagine medieval knights, because you can actually stand inside their fortresses, inside their real castles. So when I was just a kid, I've been to the Malbork castle a few times, more than once, which is actually the largest Gothic fortress built in Europe. The Malbork was the capital of the Teutonic Order, so the biggest military order of knights in Central Europe, specifically in medieval Europe. So I visited as a child more than once while begging my parents to buy me a plastic knight helmet. So standing inside those defensive walls and ramparts, seeing all of the swords and armor, and actually the scale of what these men built, I didn't feel like a tourist. I felt exactly where I belonged, if that makes any sense. That feeling didn't make sense to me then, but it makes clear sense to me now. I was culturally and geographically closer to these warrior traditions, so of knights with longsword, in armor, with poleaxes, with spears, with shields, with castles. And my instinct recognized it just like this, but my brain couldn't follow it. Why? It couldn't explain to me why it was like this. So I truly believe that you don't choose your warrior archetype, because it chooses you based on what's in your blood and your geographical location, and of course your culture. So number three, the archetypes. Different armor and weapons, but actually the same instinct. And so it leads to me thinking that the warrior archetype isn't just one thing in particular. It comes in different forms depending on who you are and where you come from. So knights represent courage, they represent honor, they represent plate armor, longsword, right, shield, and the crusading spirit. They represent strength that protects. The samurai represent pure, refined, disciplined, restrained. They represent the Bushido code, the katana, the naginata, the yari, the wakizashi. So they represent the strength that refines itself. And the Vikings represent ferocity. They represent freedom. They represent conquering the sea and the land with the Dainax or with a spear and the round shield. They represent the strength that conquers. And also, let's tackle shinobi, so the ninja, right? They represent stealth, they represent precision, invisibility, and the righteous blade in the dark that keeps everyone safe. They represent also espionage. So they represent strength that outsmarts. And also let's tackle the Assassin's Brotherhood that you clearly know about from video games. And of course, they represent the hidden blade, the creed that you're supposed to follow. They represent moving through the world and through the group of people unseen. They represent like strength with deep, deep purpose. Every of these archetypes represent a different version of strength, a different expression of this core drive that inside of our mind, which is to become something formidable and someone powerful. I think that men don't just admire these archetypes. We want to become them. We wish to be them. We really want to embody them. And that's why all of these video games, movies, they just work. For example, For Honor, so the game that has all of these characters inside of it, where you can actually play as them. This is why Kingdom Come Deliverance also works, because you can feel the Henry of Skalitz growth as your own growth. Because the game clearly understood that men don't want to play as swordsman or a character, a hero. They want to be one. We, so you and me, we wish to become a knight, a samurai, a Viking. So a powerful man. And the sword is just the expression of the strength. So number 4, the psychology. Why this drive exists. So I've been thinking about it, and I think it's not random. There is a reason that the warrior archetype lives in the male brain rent-free. If you really think about this, for most of the human's life, the man's survival and the survival of the people that were surrounding him and his close ones depended on his ability to fight, to protect, and to lead his people, his tribe, his kingdom under the real pressure of enemies, of weather, and potential death outside of his group, but also from within. And that made me think that the strength, the courage, and martial skill weren't just the extras to being a real man, because they were the baseline requirements for being a man in those times. The man who actually mattered, who had power. And that specific pressure shaped male psychology over thousands or even billions of generations. And I think that drive to the warrior archetype is just the biological echo of that pressure. That's your ancestors telling you through instinct, without you even knowing about it, what a man is supposed to be capable of. This is why it appears before anyone teaches it for real. It never fully goes away from our brain or from our body even. And I don't really think it's childish, as many of you could think of it. And I don't think it's just a phase. And I don't think it's childish to wanting to be more powerful. It's not immature. It's one of the oldest and most legitimate drives that you had from the very, very beginning of your life. This is the most legitimate drives in the male psyche. And the thing that saddens me the most is that our modern world, our modern culture, calls it just a childish phase, that we will just grow out of it. I truly think it's our biology who calls it just a blueprint. Point number 5 is modern culture recognized it and monetized it. If you really think about it, this exact instinct is worth billions to the right people. Let me start with something simple that you could understand me better. So the game development companies, such as even Ubisoft, didn't create your obsession with knights, samurai, warriors. They just figured it out, and they just sold you this back in form of For Honor, Assassin's Creed series. Even Warhorse created perfect medieval games such as Kingdom Come Deliverance first and the second one, and every of these gaming companies understood exactly what nerve to press in us to buy their stuff, to spend our money, specifically to give them our money to the CEOs of these companies. Let's also tackle Games Workshop because I'm a huge Warhammer fan. So Games Workshop built an entire empire of solding you unpainted plastic models, overpriced of course. Also in Warhammer 40,000 there are space marines in power armor crusading through the stars, through the galaxy. And of course my favorite chapter is Black Templars, so warrior monks with swords crusading through the galaxy for something greater than themselves, so for the God Emperor of mankind. So it's knights in space. This archetype just works, man. And the modern military does this too, because the aesthetic of special forces, of elite units, of warrior brotherhood also, it just draws men for the same reason as knights did, which is the promise of becoming something formidable, someone powerful, who has the power over the world, over something that surrounds him, and over everybody else, right? And I truly think none of this is wrong, because the instinct is real, and all of these things just genuinely feed it. But there is a clear difference between consuming the fantasy and actually embodying it, actually embodying the reality of the warrior archetype. But don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to grab a sharp melee weapon or a firearm and go outside beating, shooting and killing people left and right. No, don't be a dumb retard. But what I actually mean is that most of the men stay at that consumption side their entire life, until when they get actually old, they see that they will always be drawn to swords or firearms, and they just die. They just play the warrior. And I don't mean just they, we, you and me. We love to embody the warrior, but we are scared to embody one, or at least in some sorts. We love consuming all of this content. Warhammer, games, movies. Yes, it's cool, it's hype. We buy the merch, we buy these newest video games, we watch all of the newest shows, but the instinct in us still stays hungry. Number 6, the military branch. So the most modern version of this. So this is the most direct modern expression of this warrior archetype, which isn't of course hema. It's of course military service, right? So this is men drawn to special forces, to elite units, to tactical training, to union discipline, to the brotherhood of warriors, of camaraderie. All of them, all of the soldiers are following the same instinct. So of course the armor changed, the weapons also changed from swords to firearms, but the instinct stays the same. The drive didn't change whatsoever. So a knight sworn to protect his order and a soldier sworn to protect his unit and his country are operating from the same psychological foundation, which is courage under pressure. It's strength in service of something greater than yourself, and an identity built through the real hardships. So if you've ever been drawn to the swords and military history, it's the same instinct speaking through you. That's not a contradiction. That's the same archetype expressing itself through different times and periods. Point number 7 is the problem staying in the fantasy. Yeah, this one. I will not sugarcoat it for you. Consuming the warrior archetype through playing the video games, watching the movies, searching through the historical artifacts and just understanding history without embodying it through yourself, through your actions, through your practice, it will feel you empty. And just believe me, it did for me. You can play every medieval game ever made, own every piece of knight merch and watch every samurai movie ever created, but you will still feel empty. you will still feel like something is missing, because the instinct inside of you isn't asking you to be just entertained. It wants to be honored through your real actions, through your real practice, through actually learning the skill, the practical skill in your real world. It wants you to actually pick up a sword and swing it around, even without proper form, or maybe even pick up a bow with arrows and shoot it. So it wants you to build, to train your body. It wants you to actually face real pressures from the outside worlds by you conquering your own world inside of you, your own faults, to actually develop a real skill, right? Because the fantasy that I've been telling you before, so video games, movies, it just fits the surface level of it all, but the practice fits the root. So most men, probably you, because that's not me, won't take that real jump, won't take that leap of faith like from Assassin's Creed. I think not because we don't want to do it, but because we just don't know that it's actually available in our modern world. Like, it's a real thing that we can actually practice. The warrior archetype never left your brain because it was never supposed to. It was supposed to push you forward into real practice. Point number 8 is hema. So how you honor it properly. So this is where historical European martial arts comes in. I mean, not just as a sport, not just as a niche hobby, but as the real thing of nourishing that instinct through the real practice of sword fighting, of course, in safe form of it. So when you pick up your steel feather schwert, you wear your whole protective gear, and you face against another human being who also has a sword, in an actual full contact sparring, it stops being just a fantasy. You're living the warrior archetype. You are being it. It becomes your practice, right? It becomes you in a sense. It's part of you. You can train the discipline of the samurai through drilling the longsword techniques for years consistently. The courage of the knight is when you're stepping into full gear sparring, even when your body isn't prepared to do it, or specifically your mind. And the ferocity of the Viking is the moment when you're in a tournament and everything is on the line, but you're still committed. Every warrior tradition that you've been drawn to as a boy had these specific things at its core, which is martial skill. It's real courage under the pressure and real growth. And historical European martial arts gives you all of it. Of course, with modern technology and gear. In an actual real world, with real people, with real techniques and real application of the skill, with a real sword in your hand. Of course, not sharpened, but it's a real sword still, with which you can build a skill. Yes, you can actually build skill with a sword. And that pull that you felt as a child, it's real. So the plastic helmet that you begged your parents to buy for you, the stick that you just picked up on the street and just swung it, or the bow for me that I was using as a blade, it was always pointing you right here. Point number 9 is the community data. So I've spoken one-to-one with every person who joined my community, and I always ask them the same question, which is, what's your real motivation? Out of everyone that I've spoken to, only 2 people said self-defense or the sport achievement. Every single other person said some version of the same fucking thing, which is, I've loved medieval history, swords, knights and samurai my entire life, since childhood. I've loved this my whole life, and I finally decided to do it in my real life. I think that's not just a coincidence. That's the archetype speaking through all of them. And these aren't people who discovered sword fighting first and then got interested in history, because they carried the history their entire life, and now they're committing to reliving it through their own lives, because they finally found a real outlet for their instinct. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because you're here watching this video. You didn't grow out of it. You weren't supposed to. The question was never why you were drawn to knights, samurai, or Vikings in the first place. The question was always, what are you going to do about it? If this video put words to something that you've been trying to understand all your life, then join my free Start Sword Fighting community, the link in the description, where I actually teach you the the drills that you're supposed to start with. I mean, Start Sword Fighting is self-explanatory, right? This is where I help complete newcomers and even beginners with how to actually train longsword and actually use the real application of skill in sword fighting exchanges. This is where men are done with just pretending to be a warrior and actually trying to be one, through of course civilized means. So join now and I will reach out to you directly to help you with your longsword practice. And if you want to go even deeper, consider supporting me through the channel's membership called the Vanguard. Remember to subscribe to this channel because most of you don't. Leave a thumbs up, comment, so all of this YouTube stuff that you already know about. And yeah, and remember, always take the initiative.